If you've been on that jury, would you have voted to put her to death? Or keep her in isolation for nearly 11 years, where she would surely be even crazier than she already was? Or would you have chosen to stash her in a state mental institution on heavy medication for life? Today we discuss the life, the trauma, and the murders of Aileen Wuornos.
Welcome to the Vale, where we have another Creeps and Cocktails for you.
We love the creep and cocktails, don't we? It's been a lot of fun. So we have Creeps and Cocktails brought to you from Phantom Pals Nick and Leah. And today we are deciding to discuss about Aileen Wuornos, who was convicted of murdering 6 men in Florida in 1989 to 1990.
Okay.
So to celebrate our second episode of Creeps and Cocktails
For the season,
we've decided to go with a drink called the Hummer. Not a word.
What is this one all about?
This is a Michigan drink. It's Michigan's signature drink, according to Stacker.com. It's created by Jerome Adams in 1968 in Detroit at the Bayview Yacht Club.
Okay.
So the Hummer is made with white rum, Kahlua, and 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream.
Okay.
So we're going to make that. So we have our ice cream. Ta-da!
Or gelato.
Well, yeah, gelato. We were at a smaller market and they only had gelato, which was weird.
Yeah.
So for the podcast, we're going to do 1 scoop of ice cream because the size of our glass is smaller. So 1 scoop for you. Okay. 1 scoop for you here.
Okay. Do you want me to go put that back in the freezer while...
No, we're good.
While we record? I'll let you finish them?
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay. So we don't make a mess in our recording area?
Right. So while Nick is gone and putting the ice cream back, so it was kind of melting, we have our white rum. Okay. So white rum is done. Kahlua. Okay. So the Hummer has been made.
Okay. What was thrown up?
Look at
that. All right.
I'm like knocking things over here. Sorry about that. Okay.
I just must have too much on the desk.
Shocker.
I think that was a dig. I'm not sure.
Would I ever do such things to you? And then we're going to do a little mixy. He kind of sucks at his mixing.
Like WTF? Why are you so mean to me?
Friends, do you really think I'm mean to him? Please.
She bullies me.
Do I, though?
Do you?
Do I? I need to make yours better. I just need to have a little mixing thing. Use the little bit of this. So you got some on the bottom there. There. Now he's mixed. And now I'm mixed.
It's a good use for a pen.
You took the spoon.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So this is our drink.
Yeah.
So here we go with the Hummer. Zip it.
Not bad.
That's really good.
I can do that.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That was better than the Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. We won't go there with the Manhattan. Wow. Okay.
It's still, I think I still taste Manhattan. I'm not sure though. I did rinse the glasses out.
All
Okay.
right. All right. So today we're going to be discussing Aileen Wuornos. Her name is Aileen Carol Wuornos. Born February 29th of 1956. Died October 9th of 2002. She was born in Rochester, Michigan. She did have a spouse, Louis Fell, has one son, and I added in there her sign, which is a Pisces.
She would have been a perfect match for me.
Well, I mean, you are a Scorpio. They do say that Scorpio and Pisces are like the match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Because that worked out for you. So
Okay. Well, we'll just move on.
It also says that Scorpios and Aries over here were like enemies from the start. So
But I get along with you better.
that's true. We do get along pretty well.
Yeah, there's something weird.
It's actually kind of scary.
It is. That I get along with you. I don't know.
Right? Nobody gets along with me. I'm like a pain in the butt. Zip. Zip. Not a word. Not a word.
I didn't say anything.
He's kind of a jerk.
Wow. Jerk. Been called worse. All right.
All right, so Eileen was born in Rochester, Michigan on February 29th of 1956 to Diane Wuornos and Leo Pittman. She actually was, it was also said in some references or in some history that she was actually born as Aileen Carol Pittman. So throwing that in there. And she was born on leap year, 229 of 56. So
nice.
interesting. I kind of wonder if that has anything to do with anything. Probably not, but
Probably, I wouldn't think so.
it is a fun day to be born.
Yeah.
So you can have a birthday like every
4 years? Yeah.
Nice.
Be so young now.
It would take you forever to be an adult. Oh my gosh.
I fell into it. It wasn't on purpose.
That's for sure. Anyway.
Ouch. All right.
You're my best friend.
All right. Let's get into Aileen.
Okay.
Come on, Aileen.
Oh my gosh. That's not even the right spelling. Okay. All right. So Leo and Diane both divorced before Aileen was born. Aileen had an older sibling named Keith, and the both were adopted by their maternal grandparents due to the fact that Diane abandoned them at young ages. Diane, however, kind of discuss a little bit more about Diane, she was only 16 years old when she had Aileen. And her son, Keith, was just a few years older than Aileen. She had Keith when she was 14. Leo was 19 years old at this time. Leo was a domestic abuser, often beating Diane and keeping her away from any communication from people. He forbade Diane from leaving the home while he worked jobs, gardening, and building car chrome bumpers. Leo was arrested for auto theft before Aileen was born and given a choice: join the army or go to jail. So he opted for the army, and before he left for basic training in 1955, Diane filed for divorce. Leo abandoned both the children before Aileen was born, but had a troubled life of his own. Leo was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and his parents abandoned him when he was 5 months old. He was taken in by his godparents along with his sisters. He'd married twice as a teenager. Okay, married twice as a teenager.
How?
We're in the 1950s.
How? And 14 is quite young to still have a kid at the 50s.
Right.
That wasn't acceptable then.
Just kind of wondering what? All right, so he married twice, and then had a heavy drinking problem. So he had like adult issues at teenage life. It's weird.
Yeah.
So after the birth of Aileen and his time in the army, Leo was actually convicted of raping a 7-year-old, and he ended up hanging himself in jail. So,
Father of the Year.
so we're looking at somebody who has parents with some mental health issues. Got the schizophrenia on dad's side of the family.
Okay.
Mom's side, obviously a ton of PTSD, likely,
Yes.
and then depression, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely in there, I would think.
Yeah. So Diane left one night to go out with some friends, leaving Aileen, age 2, and Keith, age 4, in the care of a babysitter. However, she never came back after that night and fled to Texas. Diane was interviewed by police after the arrest of Aileen, and she stated that she was unable to cope. She was 16, alone with 2 kids. Her family were pleading with her to give her kids up to them, and she regretted that decision at this time.
Okay.
She was seen as a shame to the family, and though she tried to reunite with them, she was told no. She eventually remarried and had 2 more children. For much of her childhood, Aileen did not know she was adopted and thought her grandparents were her parents, and her siblings were siblings. Where in fact, other than Keith, the other siblings were actually her uncle and aunt.
Okay.
So she was just told they're brothers and sisters, and her grandparents are her parents. Aileen learned about her true family story from gossip that she heard at school.
That's a great way to find out.
Right. And she was about 10, 11.
I mean, that sets you up for a messed up life.
Yeah. It's crazy how that happened.
That's what I would say, but yeah.
So Diane actually went on to tell the police that she regretted allowing her kids to go into the care of her parents because her father, Aileen Wuornos, was a heavy drinker and abusive to her. It was reported by, it was reported that Lori had made Aileen watch him drown a kitten and beat her with belts. So Aileen had a kitten and he killed it in front of her. Diane also reported that her mother, Britta, was also a heavy drinker and reportedly would tell Diane that she was worthless and verbally abused her. Britta died on July 7th of 1971 of cirrhosis of the liver, and Lori refused to care for 15-year-old Aileen any longer. What's funny is that the community thought that Lori and Britta were good models of the American family caring for their grandchildren. Lori was the family disciplinarian, as many fathers were of the 1950s. He was a son of Finnish immigrants and an auto worker. Britta was thought to be the kind, loving mother, as Uncle and Aunt Lori and Barry would state in a later trial. So Lori and Barry grew up with Aileen and Keith. They were older, so they weren't in the house for long, but they were not siblings. They were aunt and uncle.
But it was like siblings.
Aileen thought that they were siblings until it was learned they weren't.
It was like siblings, though, in a way.
Right.
Because of the...
Now, funny enough, both were gone from the home by the time Aileen was 9 years of age, and they did not see firsthand anything that happened after. So Aileen was the focus of the rage that Lori had for her mother, for Diane, and the shame that Diane put the family through. Aunt Lori told police that in junior high, Aileen started a fire at the school and claimed to have been sexually assaulted over the years in the Wuornos home. At age 11, Aileen was offering sexual favors to boys for cigarettes and money, giving her the name at school as Cigarette Pig.
Hence the drink?
No. That came later.
Oh.
By age of 13 or 14, Aileen became pregnant from an alleged rape from a friend of Lori's. Lori sent Aileen to Detroit to a home for unwed mothers, where she gave birth to her son in March of 1971. She was forced to give him up for adoption.
Okay.
After giving birth, Aileen was returned home and she dropped out of school. Aunt Lori reported that Aileen came back with a hatred for men, often saying that men are only out to use women. So let's think about where she's been at from then till now, right?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't fit in at school.
Right.
It's stated in multiple reports that throughout her childhood, young and on, she had this like explosive anger.
Okay.
Very outcasted from people at school, didn't really have friends. And the group that accepted her simply accepted her because she would give them things like,
Mm-hmm.
a chance to look up her shirt or,
Okay.
touch her, and they would give her money or cigarettes. So
Right.
she was
So,
already learning this type of behavior. The thing is you don't do this type of behavior very often as a young child unless you are brought up in an environment where you feel like this behavior is okay.
right. You'd
And
have
that
to.
kind of environment means some sort of assault.
Yeah.
All right. So when she returned back, she slept in the woods, in abandoned cars, and sometimes in juvenile detention, where she learned the art of pool playing that helped her later in life for pool hustles.
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good skill to have if you don't have an education, I guess.
Right. Aileen was reported by a forensic psychologist in her trial to have an organic or traumatic brain injury with a low IQ, PTSD, and mentally ill. She was childlike in her behaviors, but uncanny, street smart, and a talented artist.
Yeah.
She had throughout childhood a violent, explosive temper, and in her teens into adulthood, she had a number of law enforcement encounters for charges such as driving under the influence, shooting a gun in the air while driving drunk, hitting a bartender, speeding, resisting arrest, assaulting men, trying to pass phony checks, holding up a convenience store for chump change.
Oh, jeez.
She hit many boyfriends or hit them back. We don't know the story, but she was kind of an abuser or gave back abuse. We don't know.
Okay.
She was a loner, never really fit in anywhere from school to jobs. She was loud, belligerent. Truth be known, no one actually helped her.
No, doesn't sound like it.
No teachers, school counselors, social workers, even dealing with her auditory and visual impairments, no one took her for medical help or followed up with the family that it was needed.
Hmm.
Um,
So she kind of just fell through the cracks.
they fed her to the cracks, I think.
Okay.
Well, she was not socially accepted even by adults who are supposed to protect children.
Right.
She was unwanted, unloved, and always felt like she was in the way.
I could see where she could see that.
So she has quite the severe chip on her shoulder. She
Yeah.
seemed to be just angry with life in general.
Yeah. She.
So when we're thinking about trauma to the brain, I mean, she's had trauma from day one.
Right.
Possibly that she already had an organic brain injury
Mm-hmm.
that she was born with, or it came later. We don't know, but we
Okay.
do know that she had a brain injury.
Okay.
Then you have the abandonment,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start having the sexual assault.
Yep.
And reports also say that she had inappropriate relationships with her brother Keith. There was some incest that happened.
Yeah.
But again, she was 2 years younger than him, and this happened in their childhood. Again, kind of alluding to the fact that she believed that these relationships were appropriate.
Right. She wouldn't have otherwise.
Therefore, something more must have been going on in the home. So when the accusations came through that her grandfather was assaulting her, it seems very believable
Mm-hmm.
because of her behaviors. So in 1976, 5 years after Britt died, Lori died by suicide.
Okay.
Aileen did not attend the funeral, and she was already in the life of prostitution and hitchhiking by this point. She was likely already in Florida when her grandpa Lori died. In Florida, Aileen met a wealthy yachtsman, Louis Fell.
Hmm.
She was 20 years old, and he was 5 decades older than her.
Okay.
But they still married in May of 1976. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Now let's just think about it. The only father figure she had was her grandfather.
Right.
Even though he may not have treated her well, there was still this father figure. He dies, and she meets another gentleman much older.
Yeah.
So it's almost like following
Yeah.
that footstep. So she was maybe replacing her grandpa in some way.
Okay.
So um, they married in May of 1976, and Fell left Eileen a month after the wedding. So that lasted a month. He
He.
claimed that Eileen beat him with his cane.
Well, I mean, she probably did.
Eileen claims that he attacked her, so she beat him with his cane.
I mean, it just was not a match.
No.
No, not even a marriage of convenience.
So they divorced in July of 1976. And that same month, her brother Keith died from cancer. Um, Now let's think about this marriage really quick. He was a wealthy yachtsman.
Yeah.
She came from rural area Michigan, lived in woods, um, was hitching and prostituting herself out for
So,
most of her life so far.
so whose convenience would that marriage even be for? Really, they're just like oil and water.
For whatever reason. Um, but if you think about it, she was never going to fit into his world.
No.
Um, and if he was, this yachtsman, wealthy yachtsman, he probably belonged to different clubs and families and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Who was going to accept her?
Nobody.
They're from like a wealthy higher class, and then here comes this lady who is a prostituting hitchhiker.
I'm like, what are you doing with her?
Yeah.
You could do better.
So I kind of wonder if that match was already starting to cause issues. Now, if he attacked her and she took his cane and attacked him back, kudos to her. But
Well, two wrongs don't make a right either.
Sir,
they,
he attacked her.
They were.
She should kick his butt.
That's gonna happen a lot with them. They're probably not good for each other.
Oh dear. So.
Because one thing leads to another, and then I would just imagine they'd both be police at their house all the time.
Oh gosh.
That just does not sound like a good fit.
It doesn't.
Any
though.
way.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Now, her brother Keith had died from cancer. Even with their weird incestual relationship as in their childhood,
yeah,
they grew up to learn like it was wrong, but they still had a very close relationship.
They were close.
Killing me.
Yeah, I know. Softly.
Keith did not want her to have this life and had left her $10,000 when he died to get her on her feet, to find a place to be steady in and live a different life. Okay. Didn't work, but
he tried.
Yeah. So Eileen went on to hitchhike around Florida, making her way to New Mexico, Colorado, and back. She developed a lifestyle of this while using aliases and using her aunt's diploma for when she needed odd jobs or misleading law enforcement.
Oh.
In 1981, being back in Florida, Eileen was walking the beach contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
She was not in the healthiest of mindset. It was stated that she was in a huge fight with her boyfriend at the time, and she had gone to a local convenience store. So instead of committing suicide, she impulsively went to the convenience store and held it up for petty cash. I will say that she was in a bikini at this time. That led to her arrest and a year in jail.
I saw some of the pictures of her on the internet. I don't think that would have made her any more fetching, though.
So by 1984, life was back to crime. Her rap sheet
Yeah.
included arrests for grand theft auto, illegal weapon possession, weapon theft, and assault and battery.
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking at somebody. She'll eventually become a, like a serial killer type,
Mm-hmm.
but she started with petty crimes and is now working their way up to it. That is a very significant and typical way we're seeing things. You don't just wake up one day and go, "I'm going to kill today."
Okay.
Like you end up working up to it, and
Right.
this is like textbook of what she's doing.
Okay.
1986, Eileen went by Lee at this time,
Hmm.
and she met Ty Moore. Well, it was like
Taria.
Taria. A lot of people are calling her Ty in reports.
Okay.
So Taria Moore at a gay bar in Daytona Beach. Now, Taria had ran from Ohio to seek out a more gay-friendly lifestyle, as her lifestyle with her family was very conservative.
Okay.
They started a 4.5 year intense relationship that showed Eileen's possessive side, not liking Ty working her jobs or interacting with others.
Okay. So she hated men so much.
Now she's lesbian.
Okay.
I don't think she was,
I...
to be honest. I think she so badly was always just looking for love.
Or companion
and
of some sort.
Ty was given it.
Yeah.
And she was going to hang on to
Okay.
that. But she became very possessive
Okay.
of Ty and didn't like it when she was interacting with other people, going to her jobs and things like that. They lived in various motels, apartments, mobile home communities around Dayton and other cities in Florida. And Eileen continued her sex work for their upkeeping. And while Ty originally didn't like it, she would encourage her to keep working because she was enjoying this lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty much party, hang out. Eileen would do her sex work, come back with money. They drink more, they hang out more,
okay.
Travel around, stay in different places. It was really just like a life of chill.
Right.
So why not keep it? I get that. Sometimes Ty would have jobs as a housekeeper or maid.
Okay.
So relationship was whirlwind. It was like being in love, living free, but that spark ended up fizzling at the 3-year mark.
Doesn't it always? That spark fizzled. It's a good phrase.
It is.
It is.
So when that spark fizzled, it happened to be about the time of Eileen's first victim.
Oh, so there's an event that kind of...
Right, it's in there.
Okay.
So Eileen killed her first victim in 1989, Richard Mallory. He was a 51-year-old TV repair service owner. He spent 10 years in a confined prison mental institution for a 1957 sexual assault in Maryland. He picked up Eileen on I-4 near Daytona Beach. They had a pleasant conversation. They picked up some beer. They headed to the beach in his 1977 Cadillac. Once there, Eileen admitted she was a sex worker and asked if he was interested in helping get some money. He was like, sure, and drove her to a secluded area where she ended up shooting him 4 times with a stolen 9-shot 22 caliber. Okay. Eileen covered his body with a piece of red carpet, took his ID, cash, and car back to her place, telling Ty that the car was borrowed from some guy.
Well, technically.
The facts of this interaction are unknown. Eileen stated that he was trying to rape him and she shot him out of self-defense. The story that she recanted and readmitted, though, several times. Okay. Next victim, David Spears, 43-year-old construction worker. His body was found on June 1st, 1990 in Citrus County, Florida.
Okay.
Eileen fired 6 shots from a 22 caliber into his torso. An autopsy showed 2 shots were in the back, proving that at some point David tried to escape. Charles Kirksiden was 40 years old, highway worker and a rodeo rider. Charles would describe as a man who wouldn't hesitate to help a stranded driver and met with Aileen on his way back to pick up his fiancee. Charles was found with 9 rounds in his chest and stomach. The decomposing body of Troy Burris, a 50-year-old salesman, was found after Charles. He had two .22 caliber shots in his chest. Charles Dick Humphreys' body was found on September 12th of 1990 in Marathon County. He was 56 years old, a retired Air Force major, a former Alabama police chief, and working as a child abuse investigator at the time of his death. Peter Simmons' car, a 1988 Sunbird, was found in June of 1990, but Peter was never found. He went missing, leaving his home in Jupiter, Florida, heading to Jersey. He was a marine merchant. Witnesses placed Aileen and Ty near his vehicles before it was discovered.
Okay.
Walter Antonio was a 62-year-old man found with shots in the back of his head. He was the last victim, Aileen, and due to the location of the shots, revealed that self-defense was not a probable cause in his death. So Ty grew uneasy with the more erratic behaviors of Aileen and suspicious of the growing amount of items that Aileen would come back with and to pawn. Whilst driving the stolen Pontiac Sunbird,
Yeah.
they crashed. Aileen frantically got out of the car and told Ty that they needed to run, and eventually stated they were driving a murdered man's car. Ty did not want to be part of the duo of being accused of murder, and knowing that the law was coming for Aileen, she told Aileen she was going to visit family in Ohio and left. Police sketches were sent out of the two, naming them things like Angels of Death and Aileen the Damsel of Death.
Ooh. I mean, sexy names there.
Mm-hmm. And these sketches came from that accident where they crashed the Sunbird because witnesses saw them both run.
Okay. That makes sense.
So police were able to trace items belonging to Richard Mallory to a pawn shop that had Eileen's thumbprint on the receipt. I like how this is all going back forensically.
Mm-hmm.
So items belonging to the victim, Richard Mallory, to a pawn shop that had Eileen's thumbprint on the receipt, and the chase began for Eileen's arrest.
Okay.
Very interesting. On January 9th of 1991, Aileen was arrested at the Last Resort, which is a local biker bar that she frequented. Police used an outstanding warrant from Colorado and kept the murder suspicions under wrap until they found Ty. Once found, police convinced Ty to help them get a confession from Aileen. So on January 14th of 1991, Ty was able to call Aileen in jail and get a confession from her. Many people probably heard this because it's online.
I think there was a TV show that actually covered her. Signs of a Psychopath, I think, covered her.
So this confession and like this conversation that was recorded has been heard by, and I've heard it and listened to it. She was working with the police, and in exchange, she would be granted immunity.
Okay.
Aileen met with the police on January 16th of 1991 and confessed to the authorities. Now, throughout this trial, Aileen stated she always acted in self-defense and the men she killed were attempting to rape her. The defense portrayed her as like a mentally ill woman with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and an IQ of 81.
I mean, she probably did have some personality disorder.
Oh yeah. We'll be getting to that. The prosecution painted the portrait of a man-hating, calculating, rageful woman under the guise of being distressed, stranded, led 7 men to their deaths. Eileen's courtroom behavior was erratic and volatile. Then she had the conspiratorial thinking that helped sabotage her defense when she stated correctional officers were poisoning her food and trying to kill her. She pleaded guilty to 3 murders and no contest to another 3. She was sentenced to 6 death sentences. After a decade on death row, Wuornos decided to fire her appeal lawyers who were working for a stay of execution, although a appointed attorney argued that comments made by Wuornos suggested she was profoundly disconnected from reality. In April 2002, the Florida Supreme Court ruled that she was able to fire her attorneys. In early October of 2002, I was going to say 2020.
Bad year.
Yeah. Florida Governor Jeb Bush at the time lifted the temporary stay of execution after three psychiatrists deemed Wuornos mentally competent to understand the death penalty and the reasons for its implementation. Wuornos was executed by lethal injection on October 9th in 2002. She was 46, and her last words, which I always like to read when somebody is put to death. Ready?
Yep.
A little different. I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the rock and I'll be back. Like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back.
Okay. Don't know what to say to that.
And,
Kind of all over the place.
yeah, yep. Now, when she arrived in court in February, she had actually told the tape recorder carrying escorts, that she wanted to write an autobiography. And she said a few quotes here. I think a lot of people need to know about my life because the media is going to make me all messed up.
Okay.
She also said, I'm never going to get a fair trial and they're going to hang me. They're going to execute or electrocute me, give me life in prison, and I don't deserve it. I don't deserve life. It was just self-defense.
Okay.
So it kind of brings me back to the opening. Would you have voted to put her to death? Would you keep her in isolation? Chosen to stash her in a mental institution? What do you think you would have done on that jury? Now, given she has borderline personality disorder, that was definitely the fear of abandonment that we saw early on in her life.
Was she ever even looked at? Is she's like with Ed Gein? He was looked at. Was he competent to stand trial?
Wasn't he found incompetent?
Right. But he was found guilty due to incompetence, so he wasn't actually sentenced.
The thing about the insanity plea and not competent to stand trial, if you're found not competent, it means that you don't understand the legal proceedings to the point of your own defense.
Right. And she was already pretty tortured, so what if she wanted to continue living in a heavy medicated life, and really, what is the benefit of that?
I struggle in this sense because,
like, what is she getting out of that?
but she didn't want to die. I mean, in the end, she did.
Right.
She made her peace, was willing to leave this, Earth, was willing to leave the planet, and fired her appeals attorneys and was ready for the end. My issues are, because she was a female, was she really just thrown to the wolves? Just something to ponder.
Right.
And one of the reasons I think that is because there was actually a report written on her. And I believe it was in the role of psychopathy and sexuality in a female serial killer. Okay, so her case has actually been researched, and there's a paper out there on PubMed, and I'm kind of looking at early childhood attachment disruptions, severe psychopathy, personality disorder pathology, and traumatic abuse
Okay.
most likely contributed to having her murder 7 victims.
Right. Right. I
Um,
mean,
there's no convincing evidence of sexual sadism, either in her history or method of committing these murders. And it's like unclear but very doubtful that she had gotten any sexual gratification, which is typical in a serial killings from men. It's
mm-hmm.
that control, that power that they want, and it gives them that sexual gratification,
Okay.
where it didn't for her. Knowing that she had the criteria for antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, um, they were they're leading towards parts of psychopathy, of being a psychopath.
Right.
And I just sort of wonder if she had this psychopath type of behavior and all these mental health diagnoses, could she have been reformed, or is she too far gone?
I don't know. It wasn't tried,
No.
but things that have happened to her, she did choose to do certain things, and now she said that it was for her protection and that they were trying to rape her, but she changed her story all the time.
Yes.
So, on another note, what actually happened?
I fully believe, this is just me,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that something traumatic happened at her first victim's encounter.
Right.
Something, because she was a sex worker pretty much all of her life,
Mm-hmm.
teenager all the way up to the time that she was caught.
Mm-hmm.
We know that she likely had met some pretty raunchy guys.
Probably.
She likely probably has been raped a number of times. I mean, she was even at
Mm-hmm.
the young age of 13 when she was pregnant,
Yes.
um, and likely assaulted by her grandfather.
Right.
Grew up in this life of sexual need, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it was not appropriate when
Mm-hmm.
she was just a child. So, saying all that, it wouldn't surprise me to know that something traumatic, something bad happened with Mallory, her first victim.
Right. There's,
And I wonder if that just set her off.
and it's possible.
Suddenly, something just snapped. And he did have this background of being in a prison and mental institution. He had sexual assault on a minor,
Mm-hmm.
um, and was sitting there for 10 years.
Yeah. Was.
It was said in some of her testimony that he would he was shoving a broken bottle up her
Oh.
and harming her and um, forcing the rape on her. So if that happened and she shot him in self-defense, I do wonder if there was um, a snap in her brain to any time she was out sex working again that she thought she was being raped. In her
Possibly.
head, it
Yeah.
was true.
Right.
In reality, it wasn't happening.
Right. Because.
So it's like a psychotic episode that she
Right.
kept reliving.
Mm-hmm.
And so anybody that she would get to stop for her hitchhiking or whatnot, she just went into this mode of they're going to try to kill me. I should
Right.
kill them first.
Right. And that is possible.
I could be wrong. It's just
Right.
my
I don't.
theory.
The stuff you've told, I couldn't say. She's had a lot of trauma in her life, though. Um, she's made her choices on her trauma in her life,
Mhm.
and there's nothing to say that being in a institution would have cured her or not cured her. The stuff that did happen to her happened, and we do have choices what route we're going to take um, to move forward. Would she have chosen a less violent form if they would have intervened sooner? Or but those choices do have the consequences. 7 people were killed by her.
No.
Um, one of them might have been actually doing stuff that could have killed her, and that would have been self-defense. But there were 6 that were not self-defense then, possibly.
True.
But you can't say that because you don't know the kind of people they were and the kind of people she got as clients.
Okay, that's fair. So imagine you're on the jury.
So, being on a jury, you have to go by the letter of the law, and if they can prove she killed them, um, and there's reasonable doubt, or not reasonable doubt, but reasonable, a good reason to think that they were paying customers due to her profession, and she killed them, then yeah, they could prove that. Then you would have to, if the death penalty applies, you would have to apply it. But if she would have tried a defense for insanity of some sort or PTSD or whatever it may be, like she didn't know what she was doing at the time, then there is statute to me that you could say, make sure she's competent enough. You can still find her guilty, but you can't sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And she never went that route,
No.
from what I understand. So she was moonlighting as somebody mentally stable then.
True.
So if she would have wanted the state institution and heavy medication and treatment, they could have went that route if
If it would have worked.
if it would have worked.
I mean, to plead insanity, you got to be able to prove that you were not in your right mind at the time
Mm-hmm.
of the crime.
She didn't go with that. Nobody, either she wasn't advised that it didn't happen, and a jury has to go by the law. And this was in Florida, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So Florida is different than our laws.
Yeah, I kind of a lot.
So um, I would say she got the right verdict if she did do these murders, and they were, even if she, by the fact of not going for the insanity, then she is taking responsibility for it. She pled guilty and no contest to 6 of them between the 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So she threw herself at the court.
Right.
So she got what was deemed proper at that time.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to look at your mental position when you do it. And
Well, they should be.
when they say that though,
Yeah.
you said guilty or no contest. It's up to the judge to look at it and how he wants to interpret it, or she. So
So I would say in this case, Aileen Wuornos, to me, again, doesn't match the criteria of a serial killer. Again, because, and only because, there isn't that time in between the killings. These happened in a very shorter amount of time. And um, it was not this compulsion, this need.
okay.
It was, I need money. I'm going to go do my job, but now I'm in like this psychosis and I think they're raping me. I'm going to kill them.
Right.
I don't think that that met the criteria for serial killer, but I do think she meets the criteria for psychopath.
Yeah. So she would be a dangerous person in society.
Oh yeah,
So
and it is stated that if psychopath or if diagnosed as a psychopath, there's no reforming that. That's a mental break that I don't think could ever come back.
no,
You're you can't fix the portions of the brain that are not being activated when they should be.
when
You're not going to fix that.
and when traumatic stuff does happen, um, kind of a something reminds you of that, it does bring it back.
Right.
So it's something people live with the rest of their life.
So what do you do with the people that have, quote unquote, the broken brains? Or psychopaths or antisocial, they're a danger to community. Should she have
Mm,
really been put to death?
their law said that, so they did.
And I struggle very much with the fact that she was put to death. I do.
Well, and that was what Florida did
But
in
I don't want to make
whatever year.
light of anything that she did just because you have psychopathic tendencies. I don't care if it's schizophrenia, I don't care if it's BPD or narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. None of that matters. You should not kill. So I'm not making light of the fact that these victims, we're just going to ignore them and she shouldn't have been put to death. Like, I'm not saying that at all. Um, her victims should not have died by her
No,
hand.
no, but
And I'm sorry to those families that were out there that lost their loved one. Um, and they're not all there to pick her up for sex work. I mean, if we read through the definition or like define who they all were, there were some of them that likely just were trying to help her
yeah,
and pulled over to help her out.
and that's what she saw, and
Right.
that's what she thought she was what they were wanting.
So
But
it definitely just worries me because she had such a broken mind from situations that were not her fault.
no,
And in the end, she ended up doing the worst of the worst and was killed for it. But there wasn't any retribution for her, um, her being a victim of the things that happened to her. That
right,
got swept away.
and but a lot of the people that she got convicted for died in the end. So
Yeah,
by her hand.
true.
So justice is a tough thing to
Yeah.
define. So, but
Well, that was a fun episode.
mm-hmm.
Um, finally kind of got to dive a little bit deeper into mindsets and thoughts. This is one of my favorite things to do. Um, and we had an interesting drink.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think of the Hummer, sir?
It's okay.
Was it?
It was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not super good.
No,
Like nothing you would order at a bar.
no, nothing I would order at a bar again.
Okay.
So
I thought it was okay. So if you guys ever want to try out the Hummer, it is white rum, Kahlua, and 2 scoops of ice cream.
and
Fun times?
fun times.
Fun times.
So if you like a coffee liquor and ice cream and
Little rum.
little rum, then
Rum, rum, rum,
it's
rum.
right up your alley.
That should be really good with like a rum chata too.
Yeah.
I have like this fascination and love with rum chata.
But
Well, thank you everybody for coming out and listening to The Veil and our episode on Aileen Wuornos. And we are going to shut things down here.
And we do have Brumder this month, so
Yes, we'll be
we
going out to
will
Brumder.
talk about Brumder later on in the month yet too. So I hope you enjoyed, and be sure to subscribe and like the page to get future episodes as they drop. We do have some surprise ones coming eventually um, as well, so we'll keep you on your toes. And we are Nick and Leah, the Phantom Pals. Thank you for listening.